Teachers, what is your greatest I hope that kid doesn't tell their parents moment? I was handing out books, hardcover copies of To Kill a Mockingbird, and was handing them out in a rather lackadaisical manner. Basically I was throwing them, gently, onto students' desks, as I was young, exuberant and foolish. My aim has forever been rather poor and unfortunately on this occasion proved to be once again. One book collided with a girl's face, corner of the book in the eye, quite hard, quite fast. She yelped, understandably startled. My heart sank and I apologized profusely to her for my silliness. She seemed fine and said she was okay, but I have never had such a nerve-wracking day and evening as that, expecting a stern email or, worse, phone call from the head teacher to chat about the day's events. Happily nothing happened and I don't think the student ever mentioned it again, but I still feel bad. Bet she never looked at you the same way again. I'm the student but I could see the regret in my maths teacher's eyes as he accidentally let slip that once he pretended to crap himself so he could go home early and avoid teaching a year 7 class. I have taken half days to avoid a particular class. I dropped a casual F-bomb by pure accident in my final placement. The grade 8 was talking about their previous student teacher and how they were embarrassingly bad and why the students really didn't like respect student teachers but was basically telling me I was the best one they'd had that year. I got caught up in the conversation and said something along the lines of now I get why you guys really don't pay much attention when asked to do work. Y'all had so many problems with I'm bad teachers. I understand why you guys are so fed up. According to my mentor teacher, their previous student teacher didn't make it through the 30 days. TBH though, where those students lived, they've seen more crap in their 14 years than I've seen in my 30 some odd. I hope each and every one of them found a passion and ran with it. They should all be in uni college by now age-wise. It's just an explicative modifier. Was playing a video for the class on YouTube. I pulled it up and then got distracted with the conversation. I didn't notice that for several minutes some very inappropriate video suggestions were off to the side. Not related to my own past videos or anything before someone asks. They were tangentially related to the topic of the video. One of my second grade students was in my classroom during recess because he wasn't feeling well. In an effort to cheer him up I pulled up some funny video that I remembered liking. I'd completely forgot just how much cursing was in it. Had this moment with the whole class. We were talking about a book at some point, probably To Kill a Mockingbird. I wanted to say, and furthermore, and transition to another point. Instead, I said, with great emphasis, and freaking. Some kids froze up, unsure what to do with this information while some burst out cackling, already in tears, and all I could say was, so, when you tell your parents about this tonight, be sure to let them know that I didn't mean to say that. I very quickly honestly as a student it's kind of refreshing to see teachers slip up. Reminds me, us, that teachers are also just humans. I was not a teacher but an after-school counselor. I was not prepared mentally to look after 25 first graders by myself. I was told when I was hired I would have a partner. They lied. During snack time some of the kids had crowded around another kid who was showing them something in his hand. It was an earring. A big Olay diamond men's earring. I told the kid to hand it over. He threw a fit and was like no, I promise I won't show it again. He shoves it into his jeans and that's the end of it, for a little while. I'm the idiot for taking a 6-year-old at his word. Half an hour later he comes up to me and tells me he swallowed it. He swallowed it. So I start yelling at him for swallowing it because I'm panicking and then he starts to panic saying it's stuck in his throat so I panic more and call the nurse. The nurse takes a look at him and says he's fine. Later when the father comes to pick him up I explain, very shakily, that the kid swallowed his earring. He nods and walks off. Turns out he can't speak a lick of English. The kid survived because he was in school the next day and every day after. Suffice to say I quit that job. I was clearly unfit to look after small lives for any significant amount of time. Later when the father comes to pick him up I explain, very shakily, that the kid swallowed his earring. He nods and walks off. That went well. Probably the time I started crying. Just tears in front of 4 third graders as a student teacher because I dropped my lunch, a Tupperware of curry and rice. and it exploded on the floor the moment I stepped out of the staff room. It was that time of the month. It was really embarrassing. Crap, I've cried about dropping my Caesar wrap on the floor at work and I don't even get a time of the month, so don't feel too bad. I am an American teaching in Scotland. I once told a group of S1s, 7th graders, to stop spasming out being spastic, as they were quite unsettled after a pay lesson a bit hyper. One kind pupil said, "Mister, you check it 87. I don't think you can say that." I then asked my colleagues in the staff room about it, and that didn't go so well. I didn't realize that in the UK that word phrase is reserved for people with disabilities such as cerebral palsy who were having an episode extremely rude. As a teacher, I've never wanted to crawl up into a hole as much as I did then, except for when I tripped up on a desk in front of a class and tore my ACL teaching stateside. Hey, was 30 years old when I learned, from a one day at a time episode, that there was a strong negative social stigma attached to epilepsy. I had no idea people cared beyond a certain amount of pity for those who had seizures. But apparently some people think people with epilepsy should be shunned and be ashamed, etc. Not the teacher but the student. Had a teacher in college tell me she got her 14-year-old son really drunk because she wanted to scare him into never drinking alcohol again. After the story and a long silence from the class, she started backpedaling and said she only did it because she loved him. Sound like 15-year-old me. I totally turned out normal. Yes sir. Not a teacher, but junior year of high school I was in pre-AP Algebra 2 and failing pretty bad. My permanent sub called me to his desk. Our actual teacher left 3/4 through the year due to pregnancy, and asked how I was going to pick my grade up. I told him that there was no way I could pick it up. There really wasn't, and that I was perfectly okay with receiving the credits I needed during summer school. He just stares at me for a good minute before saying, "I can't believe you. You're really okay with that?" I replied yes, and then he pulls out this wild card. "You seem so resigned to your fate. I can't believe it. You're like a Jew in Nazi Germany on your way to the showers, and I crap you not." The classroom went dead freaking silent and I just yeeted my butt back to my desk waiting for the bell to ring. He pulled me aside after class to clarify that he was, in fact, joking and that I shouldn't take his joke comparison to heart. Definitely an oh crap moment for him, lol. He pulled me aside after class to clarify that he was, in fact, joking. I can assure you he wasn't joking. I taught classes only for a short time. It was a tough area and I was not much older than the 15-16-year-old boys. Some of them misbehaved in ways which I was not prepared for. I asked some of the older teachers to sit in during their lessons and I was shocked, but then got used to it, at the language they used to control the boys. So once during one of my lessons a boy said something that was really bad, NSW stuff and more. So I decided to show him that I could use that language too. I ended up not just swearing but blaspheming. He shut up. Not a teacher anymore, but in high school I used to go to a teacher that I liked classroom since we both had an open slot in our schedule at the beginning of the day. One day she was about 20 minutes late and she ran in with her mascara streaking, clothes soaked because of rain, and clearly frustrated. She looked at me and apologized. Her eyes started to well up, and she said, I tried to look nice today but just frick it, and proceeded to hug me and cry. She later said she'd prefer me not say anything about it but understood if that made me feel uncomfortable. I teach at a very conservative, religious school. One of the students in the senior math class I teach asked if I went to any drinking parties when I was in high school. I said I didn't remember any. They asked so that's a no, like they didn't believe me. I reiterated that I couldn't remember them. It clicked for a few of them. Not me but my grandmother. She was an English and Spanish teacher at a Catholic school and taught 4th-6th graders. She was teaching children in her Spanish class how Miguel Pro, when living in Mexico, the hardships of Christianity was facing in his time. During her speech, she slipped up and said a street slang term and it's considered a bad word. If wondering the word, it is cabron, which means dumbass in Spanish. In the process of her realizing this, only one student who is Hispanic decent knew what she said and had a shocked expression. My grandmother told me she feared for herself and her job, as if the parents complained to the headmistress at the school grandma would have been out of a job. Last year a kid was walking across my classroom and he tripped over a chair and went flying. I laughed at him, checking him at the same time. Luckily he started laughing too, so no biggie. He was about 12 at the time too, hardly a little kid. Teach university, so it doesn't happen much at all, but I had this foreign exchange student complaining about how he was failing. He missed several weeks, hadn't turned in a couple papers. It was no contest. He went to my department head to complain about me after I politely told him there was no way to bring his grade up to passing at that point. Luckily my department head is a good guy and backed me up, but he was saying something about telling his parents and taking it up even further. But that was years ago and far as I know nothing happened. I once swore in front of a 5-year-old when I was teaching. I was really hoping he wouldn't repeat it. I swore. He asked me what I said and I laughed and said, "Oh, nothing." I'm glad he forgot. This year my son's first grade teacher was showing a video about eclipses and specifically the red moon. She forgot the original at home, so she found it on YouTube and played it for the class. At the end of the video a big red butt was in the video. She felt so bad she told all the parents what happened. Poor thing. I felt so bad for her. And you know 6-year-olds. Bums are funny. Man, YouTube will kill you. A couple of years ago it was Groundhog Day, so I decided to pull up a video on YouTube of that groundhog in Pennsylvania being held up to see his shadow. So, the people on the video are doing their Punxsutawney Phil thing and all of a sudden, at full volume, in cuts a shot of this goat screaming like a human. My 4-year-old preschoolers nearly had a heart attack. I'm not a teacher, but I was in class and the teacher screamed at a girl in my class because she legit dropped a pen. She said, "You are a complete waste of space who'll never get anywhere in life." I think this scarred me. It was the last day of school at our middle school. I taught 7th grade. It was a half day. While the 8th graders were having their graduation, we took the 7th graders outside for a water balloon fight. I bought a giant super soaker for the occasion. By the end of the day, all the teachers were standing outside supervising bus duty. A gaggle of 8th graders just would not get on the bus and the bus drivers were getting pee off. I walked over to a group of 8th graders and lightly fired my super soaker in the air and yelled, "Go home to your mothers." Most of them just laughed and got on the bus. One boy got super pee though, opened his water bottle, and threw its contents onto me. I had a full tank, so in retaliation, I unloaded on him. He had to get on the bus and ride home in damp dress clothes. I was a little concerned, but not too concerned, since it was my last day at the school in the district. Turns out that 8th grade boy had been a holy terror that year and all the 8th grade teachers came over to high-five me. In hindsight, it was a complete overreaction on my part, and I'll admit, kind of funny. I wish you'd been a teacher at my middle school. There were far too many kids who could have done with some comeuppance like that. This isn't so bad, I guess, but I still cringe a little. I was using the opening scene of The Lion King, Circle of Life song, to explain broadening and narrowing perspective to my students. They seem to respond really well to the visual, and it translates across into their written work, and really helps them understand the concepts and identify them in literature. I always just type Lion King opening into YouTube and click the first video, no problems whatsoever, until the day I was being observed by my HOD, school head, and executive head. Opened up YouTube, did my thing. First result up, opened it up and got it on the big screen. The plan being for the kids to watch it once with no action needed. Then again in that time raising either a right or left hand to indicate when they spot a broadening or narrowing perspective. The video starts for the first playthrough. No issues that I can see. The kids are singing along. My heart is smiling at me. I've got this observation down. But, as the video starts to end, as Rafiki is walking along Pride Rock to show Simba to the assembled animals as their future king, it all falls apart. The video was an edit, the one where, at the last moment, Rafiki just freaking launches Simba off of Pride Rock. Oh, crap. The kids are howling with laughter, just totally losing it. My heart is trying so hard not to join them. By my head teacher and the executive head do not look impressed. All three leave quickly, and I know that I'm going to be in the crap later, despite it being a totally honest mistake. My whole lesson was lost after that. The kids just couldn't come down from it, and so we ended up just talking and I let them do their own thing, homework or reading or whatever, while I died in the corner. I teach in Germany. Near the end of the year we were done with the whole Nazi Germany topic and I had a lesson left, so I told them to bring stuff from that era into class. Many families still have medals, gas masks, documents, etc. Well, this one girl brings in an unfired 8mm Mauser round and a 20mm flak warhead. I had a student teacher about 11 years ago that I was supervising, and one day for no apparent reason she dropped the S-bomb before seemingly just losing the plot trying to make up for it. She just dug herself a deeper hole over something she could easily have brushed off in a class full of 16-year-olds. When I say that she lost the plot, she basically began talking about how saying crap wasn't too bad, while saying it multiple times and going red. I had to spend a fair bit of time just getting the class back on track and giving the poor girl some advice if that kind of thing happened again. I waited anxiously for angry phone calls and messages, but thankfully nothing happened. I was glad she was a really good student teacher. Other than that, I suspect the students probably got that too, as well as a bit of a laugh. I'm not a teacher, but I was shocked that there was no aftermath. One of my teachers hit a kid, a high school kid. I don't know who it was. They said that they quit really loudly in the hallway. We were placed on a code red for the rest of the day. Shockingly, no police, angry parents, none of that. Sad part was, they were one of my favorite teachers. My mom was subbing for freshman literature and asked to read the book. Normally the regular teacher would shake them and be kinda rude to them, but my mom is one of those teachers that cares more about them learning. She joked about it and went just had the kids promise to actually read it by the end of semester. Then she gets to this last chick. My mom asks her to promise like with the other kids, and all of a sudden this girl just bursts out sobbing. No one knew why, so we all just kinda sat there. She eventually calmed down, but my mom thought she did something wrong. It took 20 minutes to convince her that the girl is just a drama queen. I was teaching 8th grade math, and I am a juggler by hobby. I was using juggling balls to demonstrate some math concept and I noticed my balls were sticky, so that's what I said. I wonder why my balls are so sticky? The class erupted and I turned around and faced the wall to hide my embarrassment and laughter. I'm glad it was near the end of the period because there was no coming back to a lesson after that. I kinda laughed it out with them and prayed no one went home and told their parents. I'm not a teacher, but I was the parent in the room when this happened. I'm sure the teacher was hoping the kid never told their parent. The 8th grade class was making dream boards, so they were using magazines to cut out pics for them. Another teacher came in and was talking to the classroom teacher, so one of the boys came to me. He said there is something inappropriate in this magazine. Now this kid was always the class clown and looking for attention, so I'm thinking it's going to be something stupid. So I said, what is it? He shows me the magazine and it had a whole display of dildos. I was like OMG and grabbed the magazine from him and thanked him for letting me know. I went over to the teacher, and when the other teacher left I just held the magazine open to that page and showed her. It was a catalog that sold everything. Mostly innocent stuff, but also a few sex toys. Mostly unrelated, but similar magazine. One Christmas my grandma with dementia was flipping through one of those catalogs, stops on a page with dildos and stares, and then said, I don't think I like this story very much. I tossed a box up and over a desk where I knew a 7th grader was hiding. He's kind of an annoying dong. I heard it hit him. He threw it back, full force. My teacher played the movie The Crucible for us. The beginning has a nude dance scene in the woods. Teacher must have forgot because when she looked up from her paperwork she was shook and asked if the movie had played from the start. Oh man, my teacher did this too. And we also watched The Scarlet Letter with Demi Moore. After the gratuitous nudity in the opening part, my teacher reviewed the movie at home and then cancelled the remainder. I was researching some famous people for a PowerPoint presentation and asked a student in my study hall for suggestions. She recommended a rapper I never heard of, called XXXTentacion, but she didn't know how to spell his name. She told me just to search for XXX. I suspected that was a bad idea, but she was certain it would work. We were on a school computer. It should have safe search. How bad could it be? Apparently safe search was not turned on. While I cannot tell you exactly what kind of pee popped up, it only took a split second to process that there was much nudity and no rappers. I noped out of that screen so fast, but not before the student also caught a glimpse. We both turned red and laughed uncomfortably. I typed XXX rapper and prayed I would never have to talk about what happened again. Wednesday, a student came into my office begging for a C, and when I told him his final grade would indeed be a C, he started crying. Big Dwayne The Rock Johnson looking dude. I told him if he didn't stop crying I'd smack him across the face. I'm just not comfortable with emotions, and apparently I'm not great at handling my own either. Not a teacher, but I was in 2nd grade during recess when one of my friends wanted to use the restroom and the teacher wouldn't let her. She ended up peeing her pants and was crying so much. The teacher didn't get in trouble, but I so wish she did. There was the time I was showing year 8, 12/13 image editing techniques. I forgot the correct method of adding a layer mask because we had switched to a new, open source image editing package. So, on the whiteboard, I went to Google and searched GIMP mask. I realized literally as I hit search. Thankfully most of the kids didn't get it, and because I was using Chrome, presumably, the first half dozen results were somehow clean and relevant. Slammed a book down on a desk to wake a kid up. Had done it many times before with no issue. Kid woke up and started crying. I felt awful. I didn't even consider the trauma they might have at home and how much this would scare the crap out of them. Last time I ever did that. I totally understand. Sometimes it doesn't cross your mind till after you do something, even if there isn't a reaction like that. Every time I do something that could have been handled better, I just try to remember that a caring teacher wouldn't reflect on their actions. Every day brings a new lesson. I am an industrial tech teacher, and I once had a kid wander into my class to talk to a friend. I told him to leave and go back to where he was supposed to be. He ran out of the room and shut off my room lights. I had kids using table saws and chop saws at the time. I chased him down and physically shoved him into a wall and screamed, "You can't do something like that in a shop." I am sure this isn't too bad compared to other comments on this post, but it was the only time I ever pushed a kid. I was pretty nervous the next few days, waiting to hear if crap was about to hit the fan. He was probably more nervous than you reporting him for doing that if you got so mad. Source: I'm a student who had a shop teacher who was fairly strict. I was bullied by everyone in my school. That wasn't my only best friend in 7th grade. Everyone. Kids younger than me, older than me, kids in my grade. Everyone. Made fun of on the bus, in class. Had my seat kicked on the bus a lot. All of that. That plus my abusive father in 7th grade made me incredibly irritable. I absolutely despised my life, and that year was my worst. I had anger issues and major depression. But either way, one day, yet another little girl started kicking at my seat. Had to have been in 3rd grade. She was calling me names too. I ignored her. She kept doing it. Eventually I got up while the bus was still moving. I grabbed her with one arm and held my other fist up and said, "If you kick my seat again, I'll freaking destroy you." The bus monitor got involved. She tried to lie and defend herself, but it was obviously not true. The bus monitor still didn't take my side though, obviously. Surprisingly, I didn't get any sort of punishment or penalty for that. My middle school was complete crap. Dang, if I'd been that bus monitor, I'd have stood up for you every time someone did that, and the day after pulled you aside or something and gave you a cupcake or cookie for standing up for yourself. Huge wind gust lifted an umbrella at its stand. Flew right into and almost impaled my 2 quiet students, high schoolers, while we were writing sidewalk chalk haikus outside. Final destination crap right there. Not a teacher, but I saw the teacher that did that regret it instantly. I had meningitis as a toddler, wasn't vaccinated as a kid. Anyway, the illness left me deaf from the right ear. Like, completely deaf from one side. Pretty crappy to locate stuff and to get onto crowded places. As if Asperger's didn't made that hard enough. But it has its perks, like my earphones, my earphones, my earphones, my earphones, my earphones, my earphones. I used to wear a hearing aid to help me in class, so everyone knew I was deaf and I was okay with that. Until I went to Miss X's class. where I was taking a heavy nap cause come on, I was a kid, and she abruptly bangs on my table. Apparently she was calling for me for a while and I didn't wake up cause my working ear was resting against my arm. She started saying, hasn't your mom ever taught you any manners? Are you deaf to keep ignoring me? She realized her mistake alone. You could see she go pale. She said she was so sorry and got back to teaching. At least I got the end of my nap, lol. It happened when I was about 9. So my mind is quite foggy. Didn't tell my mom cause I had happened before and it was just a laughing matter for me. Not a teacher, but I imagine the teacher who showed her class a Bill Nye YTP while looking for a pirated version on YouTube thought it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.